everyone, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here, and let's get started. So we're going to be talking about how to write systems of equations. Now, I apologize for the noise in the background. There is construction going on, so hopefully you can hear me and that I am louder than that noise upstairs. Now, let's get started. It's always a good idea to take notes. And let's begin. So writing systems of equations. Basically, systems of equations just means that we're going to have more than one equation needed in order to solve a problem. Okay? So let's look at this one and let me kind of demonstrate that. Example number 1. There are only dogs and insects in the yard. Okay? There are 33 heads. Okay, and there are 192 legs. Okay. How many dogs and how many insects are in the yard? Before we can answer that question, we first have to set up the equations, and that's what our focus is going to be on today. So I wanted to highlight a couple of things. Number 1, 33 heads, 192 legs. Those are important. Those sound like some totals, right? And then here we're comparing, we got dogs and we have insects. Okay, and I picked ladybugs. Now, let's go ahead. We're going to organize our information. The first one we mentioned were dogs. We love dogs. And then we have ladybugs. We have insects. Now, for the first time, typically we've been using X and Y, but we can use variables that help us remember what we were talking about. So, for example, I might use the variable D for dog. I don't like to use the variable I. It looks too much like a 1. So I'm probably going to call it B for bugs. Okay? Now, something that we need to consider when we're talking about legs and heads, okay? We need to consider how many heads are on each animal, and how many legs are on each animal. Now, for the heads, it's just one head, right? Like, there's one head, and there's another head, right? So each of them have just one head. So that in and of itself is not enough to help us solve this problem. But if we combine that with the knowledge that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know what that is. A little extra one. Okay, 4 and 5 and 6. 6 legs for every insect. So I'm going to write that down. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 cute little puppy paws, little legs connected to the legs for each dog. So each dog has 4 legs. Okay. Now, I like to set it up like this, where we're looking at totals right here. I just like to keep it organized. I'm setting up my equation, okay? And I like to compare the two things that we're talking about. We were talking about dogs, and we're talking about insects. And I refer to dogs with D, so I'm going to put that in the parentheses, and insects with B, so I put that right there. And now I want to be really clear. We're going to write one equation for the heads and one equation for the legs. So it means every number in this equation is going to be talking about legs. Every number in here is going to be talking about heads, okay? So before we said that these were total amounts, right? Totals. So what number do you think I'm going to put here? Good, 33, because that's the total number of heads. And the total number of legs is 192. Okay? So now let me go over here. We said we had 1 head for every dog. 1 head per dog looks like this, 1D. So if I had 3 heads, it would be 1 times 3, which is just 3, right? Now, when we look at the heads for the insects, again, we had 1 head, so that's going to be 1 B. And this is a total, so we're going to be adding. If it said like difference, that might be a clue that, hey, we're going to use minus. But in this case, we're adding, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and do the second one. where we're talking about legs. I want you to think about what number is going to go in front of D. Well, when we look at legs, here we are, we're focused on legs, and we're focused on, I'm going to do the dog, so that's 4 legs per dog, 4D, plus, you got it, 6B. Good. Okay. When we write our final equations, you can definitely write the two equations as 1D plus, okay, that's pretty loud, 1B equals 33, right? And you could write it, the other equation as 4D plus 6B equals 192. So this is why we call it a system of equations, because it's more than one equation needed in order to solve this, right? If we're working with a calculator, the calculator is not a big fan of D and B, so you will have to use X and Y. I would make a note that which one do you assign to which, and I would just kind of replace it. So that's going to be 1x plus 1y equals 33. And this right here would be 4x plus 6y equals 192. Okay, so there you go. There's your first example. Let's go ahead and let's look at the next example. I think it would probably be best if you wanted to pause the video right here, see if you can do it, and then come watch me do it. Okay, so take a pause. All right, welcome back. Here we are. We're talking about ducks and we're talking about fish. So there are only ducks and fish in a pond, and there are 5 heads and 6 legs all together. These are total amounts. Okay, how many ducks and how many fish are in the pond? Well, first we have to set up the equations, right? So let's talk about the 2 types of animals that we have. And again, we have little pictures here, but it even says it, ducks and fish. So I'm going to write down ducks and fish. And I'm going to put D for ducks and F for fish. Okay, so heads and legs. We definitely know that the duck has 1 head, right? Got it. And the fish has 1 head, right? Now, if we look at the legs, that duck is sitting there with 1 and 2 legs. And the fish, those are flippers. They don't count. So there are 0 legs for the fish, right? Let's go ahead and set it up. We were comparing heads with legs. We're comparing ducks with fish. So I'm going to remind myself that's D for ducks and F for fish. And this is usually my total amount right here. Okay. I'm going to plug in my totals. I got 5 heads total. Heads total 5. See? Total heads. It's in the right place, right? So here I need the total number of legs. 6. Okay. Let's go to the next thing. Let's talk about the heads, okay? So the duck had 1 head per duck. That's how you write that. Plus 1 head per fish. When we talk about legs, we had no legs. No legs is 0 legs. So 0 F. And here on the duck, we had 2 legs. Okay. And when we write our equation, I'm going to go ahead and write it as 1D plus 1F equals 5. Okay. And we have 2D plus 0F equals 6. Now I'm going to be honest with you. This will actually simplify to become D plus F, right? Because the ones they're not needed. And then this one, 0 times F, because that's what happens when they're real close to each other. 0 times F is just 0, right? And so you end up with 2D plus 0 equals 6, which ends up becoming 2D, because anything plus 0 is what you started with. So 2D plus 0 is 2D, and that equals 6. Okay? So these are the two equations that you would end up with. Okay? All right. Bring any and all questions that you might have to your teacher during Sing Time today. And again, just wanted to tell you thank you so much for spending time with me, and have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.